Hey, good evening traders, Mark here. It's 9 o'clock on Monday evening, the 21st of March, and are we going to have a big week this week for some potential pound longs? Well, let's take a look and see what we can see. So looking at the daily chart, higher time frame, top down analysis. You know, we covered a lot of these charts last week, but it's how they've come into fruition and what we can potentially look for this coming week and how we can take advantage of it. So again, we're just looking at the higher time frame. We can see the market rejecting these trend lines multiple times. The third time just down here didn't quite make it to test the support trend line, but what we want to sort of envisage is that the markets are random. They're not always going to touch the extreme. So it's how can we then look at trading a market if it doesn't come to our extreme trend lines or extreme support levels. So in this case, something we're looking for is how did price move from here and what can we look for in the future. So first thing we're going to do is just drop down to the 4-hourly chart, and we'll notice that we have a short-term trend line that is rejected not once, not twice, but 3 times, and then we've seen the market break out to the upside. Now 132 even handle, you can see this blue zone through here. 132 is proving a tricky area to break this current time round. We've seen it test it 3 times here, but what we also can potentially see is a reversal pattern setting up, which is, if I just show you here, we've got the left shoulder, the head, this is obviously going to be the neckline, and we're looking at the right shoulder here. But before we can look at really taking long opportunities, we want to see it break through these wicks here. So on a smaller time frame, or maybe even down to the hourly, or you could even look a little bit low if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, we want to set alerts tomorrow for price to break through basically 132 and a few points. So 132.12, we're looking for price to break through that area, and that should give us a clean run up into the next even handle 133. So when we go back to the higher time frame, we want to look left and see where that next bit of structure comes in. So if we just drop down the horizontal ray, we can see that through this area here, 133, we've got multiple rejections, predominantly wicks, but even handle, and that's where I would suspect that if we can get through this area, we'll look for a smaller time correction pattern to then trade it into at least 133, with 134.50 being a next sort of area, and ultimate targets 135 to 135.50. Now, that being said, we've got to get through 132 first. The market could quite easily break down and take out this short-term support trend line here, and we could come down and make another push for our trend line. And if that is the case, then so be it. We'll look for more opportunities and reversals should price come down and test the 129.50 trend line. So these are 2 scenarios we've got to watch out for. We're not going to short right now because it would need to do a break and then some corrective pattern to then take our next impulse, or we need to see a break to the upside followed by a correction and then we trade long. So hopefully you've got a clear objective of what to look for here with cable or pound USD. I'm going to look at pound Swiss as well, because pound Swiss is quite interesting in the sense that, let's just remove all these drawings right now. So if we look at pound Swiss has been in a range. We've seen price reject 121.50. We've also seen the top of the range around 126, and then in the midpoint of the range we've got another, what I would say, it's not crystal clear, but you've got the double bottom here, you've got these wicks here, you've got what was the midpoint of the range here. You've seen price reject, finally broke through, then it retested and it's gone down to the bottom. We broke above and now we're sitting in that sort of vicinity. So the question is, if pound is going to break to the upside, we should in theory potentially see it break higher on against pound Swissy. Now if we look at the 4-hour chart, we can see we've had a double bottom in here, we've had an impulse, correction, impulse. Now looking at the finer detail, you can see it's had a correction, a pullback, and then we've had a new potential trend starting to the downside on the 4-hour chart. So before we want to start looking for those longs, we want to see price reverse. So we want to see it do something like this before we can start to get long and trade it back towards the top of the range. One thing we can say is that the way the market has moved on the hourly chart is we've got some nice cyclical patterns here. We can see how this is moving like this. Now, if we then just think of the reversal pattern I just mentioned, so the head and shoulders pattern, we want to see price pull back into this structural point here, which lines up with the midpoint of the range where we saw the previous intersections. And we want to see price just run up into here, maybe create a higher low, and then break and retest. And we'll use that 123 area to get long, first take profits in and around 124, and then with the market to continue up towards 126. So that's one more pound chart I wanted to show you. We're going to move on to Aussie Yen now. Aussie Yen, will go to the daily time frame. This market has been, it's a traditional risk on currency pair. We've seen our alert set for 86. The market just blasted through 86, and you know, we're sitting pretty much 88.50 right now, and the market just went pretty much ballistic, one-way trajectory, without any corrections. So what we would essentially be looking for here would be some kind of pullback into 86 to get long, and that could be the trend line, it could be the blue zone, or a confluence of both. Now, as it stands, we really want to be only thinking of looking for long opportunities. So if this market is going to continue, we'll probably see it break through this short-term resistance and continue moving higher. Now, for those contrarian traders that want to not only take the long from down here should it get down here, but want to look for the contrarian trade, then you're going to start to look for maybe something like a break of this. So we want to see sellers come into control, we want to see it break, take out this low here, put in a new lower low, and then look for some kind of correction to then trade that next impulsive move down towards 86. I wouldn't go all the way for 86 unless there's a huge downturn on equities and indexes. I would be looking to exit that position way before the market gets into this zone, just to be sure, especially as it's a contrarian trade and the market is much more likely to continue with its current trend, which is to the upside. So manage these trades, especially if you are going contrarian, much more aggressively, taking profit off the table. So what does this look like if we look at something like the Nasdaq? Well, the Nasdaq, we called this, hopefully you saw that video. Is it time to buy the Nasdaq? Well, it looks like it certainly was. Put it 1,400 points higher. It was definitely the right decision to be looking at buying the Nasdaq. Now, 13,000, huge psychological level. Buyers came in at this point previously. Has the market changed sentiment at all? Not really. We've still got the war taking place horrifically between Ukraine and Russia. We've had some sentiment in terms of from the Fed, talking about 50 basis point rises should the market need it. So, you know, that should be something that should impact indexes and equities to the downside. But we've seen today that they've shrugged off those comments and we've continued to push a little bit higher. Ultimately, I would like to see a pullback, a correction to get long. We have seen the market here where it's tested 14.4. We did put in a lower low. We're rallying back up towards testing those highs. To get long, I would need to see the market break through these highs and then look for the next move. Or we're going to look for price to potentially pull back down in towards that 13,800. On the S&P, it would look a little bit, let me just go to the S&P. I think it's around 4,380. So let's just come to the S&P. Yeah, around 4,4 to 4,380, where this blue zone is through here. I'd want to see price break down and come back into these structural points. Now, unfortunately, we are continuing to see buyers and a bid step into the market. So with the S&P, if we do see price break through around 44.80, then I would anticipate that we're going to see that next move up in towards 45.20 and then potentially up to 45.82. As I've previously mentioned, I am only a buyer of indexes and equities, so therefore I'm not looking to short any potential move down into support but I would be looking for opportunities to get long here, or if we get above here, I'll be looking for opportunities to get long from in this zone. Right, last but not least, I think I've got Bitcoin to take a look at. Now, we have got quite a few crypto followers, but look, this market really is boring. There's nothing really for me to do. You can see potential to trade the range until it breaks out. So if you are a range trader, contrarian trader, happy to trade any sort of shorts from around 45,000 should price give you your setup, and long opportunities from around 35,000. But what I'm looking for is either breaks above 46, and if we can stay above there, then I will be bullish this market. However, I still have the same belief that we're going to see price push down, maybe test 30,000 and maybe even a bit lower, and this would effectively draw in some buyers for Bitcoin, some fresh buyers, and that new sort of impetus for buying of Bitcoin. Once we get a rally from that, and if it is a dead cat bounce and we see something like that, those profits are usually transferred across into altcoins. So that's the scenarios I'm looking for when it comes to crypto. Until that point, I'm pretty much a bystander, to tell you the truth. So on that note, guys, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's video. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with fellow traders, and if you haven't yet already, please subscribe. This way you won't have to wait for any newsletters or potential maybe little tags that you're searching for on YouTube. It'll just come straight to your inbox the second we publish the video. On that note, guys, have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for Tuesday's video. Good night.